Hello, and welcome to our next presentation. On behalf of the MIT CDOIQ Virtual Symposium, we'd like to thank all of our sponsors who have continued to support the symposium during this very challenging year. Before we thank our partners, we'd like to ask that sometime during the symposium's breaks that you visit our partners' virtual booths. You can also visit the Content Hub on the MIT CDOIQ website for some great partner resources. We'd like to thank the following partners: Deloitte, Informatica, Privacy Analytics, DAWEX, Fusion Alliance, KPMG, Sandal Consultants, Tamer, Elation, Ali Data, Big ID, Boomi, Caserta, Citizen, Data Kitchen, Garage, Wakira, Pylog, Click, ThoughtSpot, Eckerson, Global IDs, Snowflake, Starburst. And as I said, please make every effort to visit our partners, use the virtual passport, because without them and our partner support, the symposium could not be held. Thank you.
My team continues to have what I call total force, where we have both military and civilians. And on the military side, I have active duty and reservists that do work both as their drilling organization, and we have a few that continue to bring their industry experience into our office and bring in those best practices, which I think is really critical to our ability to drive data-driven capabilities very quickly. I like to say that they've given us velocity. But really, our whole goal is really to make our data actionable as quickly as possible to drive insights. Right now, a lot of organizations talk about our AI, and in the Department of the Air Force, there is a AI cross-functional team, but our data component is really the foundational component to move those efforts moving forward. So in the last two plus years since I've come into this role, we've really been talking about operationalizing data, strengthening partnerships, and really developing standards. The first piece operationalizing data can't really happen without really strong partnerships. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the partnerships that we've established. And the other piece is that we in the Air Force have to work not just with our other military services, but with our allied partners. So having standards that provide interoperability helps us move faster. So one of the first efforts that we did in our office was we stood up the first enterprise level data platform in the cloud. And when we do this, we use an acronym in the Air Force. We call it our Vault Data Platform, and it stands for Visible, Accessible, Understandable, Linked, and Trusted. In the Department of Defense, we actually use an acronym called Vault IS, and the IS stands for interoperability and secure. And really, to make sure that data is accessible and visible is really the foundational components that we've really been working on and striving for and over the last 24 months. And to do that, we've really taken our efforts and really focused on 3 key areas: providing data services and tools, indexing and exposure. But I cannot emphasize enough that our analytic partnerships has really helped us move forward. I like to say when I talk to senior leaders that data is a team sport, and it's because it's not about one office doing work in the area of data. It's about building those partnerships. I sometimes use a term called CDE, Chief Data Evangelist, because in order to move and move quickly, I need change champions across the department to move forward. And so to do that, we actually focused on what I would call some key use cases. So I was fortunate enough to have some of those change champions actually volunteer and really partner with our organization to have exemplars for our senior leadership. And so the first one I like to talk about is our installation management use case. So I should probably pivot by say that in our stand-up area, we actually stood up a small data lab based on Andrews Air Force Base, but it touches everybody across the Air Force. So we've had senior leaders that if they have a data-driven problem that they want to look at, and it has an enterprise focus, they can actually reach out to our organization and get support with data scientists and data engineers to really partner to look at a small, scalable problem so that we can actually study it. The other piece that we did was we created an L&O program. And so again, using citizen airmen, we've actually put reservists that are out in what I call the centers of gravity as liaison data officers out in the field. And we did it geographically based because I could not give every single organization in the Air Force their own liaison, but we put them in key areas such as joint based area of San Antonio that covers Austin all the way to Austin, Texas. We have a liaison out at Hanscom Air Force Base, but they cover our MIT AI Accelerator and our software factory, Kessel Run in Boston. We also have one out in the Dayton area, which covers our logistics community as well as our research labs. And so we put these LNOs across these centers of gravity to be their touch point locally so that if it's not an enterprise focus use case and it's more a smaller use case, they can actually mentor them through the use case process. And so the first operational data use case I want to introduce today is one that we did with the installation management group. And many times we have use cases that I may not be able to talk about in a public forum due to sensitivity of data. The installation management use case I like to highlight because you made data that was already available, absolutely actionable to support our airmen across the enterprise. One of the things that our installation management group did was they took what we call PCS, permanent change of station data, to look at what are going to forecast what the daycare or childcare facility we're currently using and what were going to be the needs in the future. And by knowing when airmen rotate in and out of different areas, it allowed us to forecast what were going to be the needs every 6 months or so. And so if they needed to re-vector or realign some of the childcare facilities to optimize accessibility, that data informed decisions to support our installation management group. And so it also helped them identify when they needed to retrain, reconfigure, and as well as hire ahead of time. And that has allowed those types of services to be available faster or as needed. It doesn't mean that there's never going to be a waiting list to get into a childcare facility, but they've absolutely optimized the facilities that are available to reduce that time significantly. And for many of us that are working parents that have had to deal with childcare challenges, this is a problem set that most of us can relate to. Other ways that we've operationalized data was we partnered with our air training command down in the San Antonio, Austin area, where they were, we have a program called Pilot Training Next. And Pilot Training Next is about using simulators to truly prepare our pilots in training so that they maximize their learning opportunities when they go live in the cockpit. So students in training in-flight training have access 24/7 to these very high-end simulators, and using the data that comes off those simulators, we've been able to really maximize each and every training dollar in the live scenario. So it allows people to practice, give feedback, and really run scenarios, validate capabilities, and it has really been a way to truly make sure that each and every student is ready for their next sortie, as well as making sure that if people need a little bit more practice in a complicated area, because every student has their own learning opportunities, and so it has really made them maximize the availability of those training opportunities. The KC-10 operational use case, I think, is very interesting because I had a brand new airman that reported into my organization. He wasn't, and data was new to him. There isn't a data career series today in the Department of the Air Force. So he was here really as a push leadership assignment. And the more he learned about use cases, he came to us and said, I believe that we do models in my former community, and it takes sometimes days to come up with answers. And so working with the KC-10 community, we deployed a small group of data engineer, data architect, and we sent them to that community. I like to say we take the data nerd to the mission so that they can work with the individuals, and using a rapid agile development model, doing some prep work over a few weeks to prep data before before this team got on site, working on site literally 4.5 days. They left with a minimum viable product that allowed this community to take their models, and instead of it taking days or to come up with a solution, they can now run approximately 30 scenarios an hour. And I like to say that there's always lots of work for airmen to do. The to-do list gets longer every single day. So if we can automate some of these capabilities so that they can actually continue to work in other core areas where we really need them to use their really smart intellectual learning towards a problem. This KC-10 problem set was, I think, for me, pretty exciting because it was a capability that we now can leverage those types of models to other platforms moving forward. But it really talks about what I like to say, we're trying to empower each and every airman to use data to drive insights. So using our Vault platform, a cloud-based platform with current state tools that they typically don't find on their traditional laptop, which in our environment includes things like open source tools. They're not necessarily standard, and it's not necessarily easy for them to add it to their platform. They can go out to the Vault Data platform and empower empower each other to really drive their own data insights. And so the next thing that we did just recently was we just wrapped our first of a series of data-thons. Using the hackathon principles, we took problem sets that came in from the community, and then literally we had a virtual data-thon where over a series of a week, we had over 100 airmen work remotely, led by some amazing subject matter experts from the field. Our first datathon, we used the C17 puck scheduler. C17 is a plain platform, and a lot of their scheduling was done in less than automated fashion. And within a matter of 3-4 days, we had a little competition, and the winning datathon group was a group that came from, it was a team that met at the datathon. They worked remotely, and they came up with a 92% scheduling solution that can be automated. And that's really what I talk when I talk about having airmen have data be part of their core DNA moving forward. Datathons are some of the first steps to help us highlight some of the amazing capabilities our airmen have, that we just need to leverage it as part of our solution moving forward. I talked a little bit about partners, but I think that I really wanted to highlight that it's not, that we really have to do this together. So I work with my DoD partners. I work with Tom Cicela at the Department of Navy and his team, Greg Garcia at the Department of Army, and Dr. Portia Crow, who's at the CDO of Army Futures Command. We all work with Mr. David Spurk, who's the DoD CDO, but it's really about us working together to drive common solutions, because together individually we're doing great work. Together, it gives us that velocity moving forward. The other piece that I wanted to highlight is we don't do this alone. We use industry partners. So last year, the Department of the Air Force published its first data service reference architecture, which was a publicly releasable document that was available out at airforce.mil. And we did that intentionally so that when our industry partners were potentially bidding for work, they had a framework to build from. So I like to say, so they're not flying blind. The other piece that I think is really important is that we also have huge touch points with academe, both academe inside the Department of Defense as well as externally. Inside of the Department of Defense, we've partnered with the Air Force Institute of Technology to build the first online graduate certificate program in data science to upskill our airmen across our department. But we also have academic touch points outside. Last fiscal year, the Air Force stood up what we call the AI accelerator at MIT. And so we have a team of airmen that work with Massachusetts Institute of Technology to actually work on some very challenging AI problem sets right now. And that is a partnership that is continuing to mature. We're about to hit our 1-year anniversary with MIT, and it's been highly successful. When we did our Datathon, we partnered with our MIT AI accelerator. For many of the cadre on that staff actually helped and mentored some of our Datathon participants. And then the last piece is, it's not just about working with DoD, we work across the federal space. OMB runs the Federal Data Council, and there we develop additional partnerships so that we can leverage lessons learned so that we can move forward. So it's really about working in concert with each other, and those partnerships, both inside and outside the Department of the Air Force, is another example of helping us develop velocity as we move forward and trying to drive culture change. So if we look at where we're going to go forward, in the Department of the Air Force, my position, I work for the Undersecretary, but my colleagues, the Deputy Chief Management Officer and the Deputy Chief Information Officer, Mr. Richard Lombardi and Mr. A.G. Hatcher, we work together on a regular basis. We use a term that we call digital Air Force. And as we strive to become truly digital service and a truly digital department, the partnerships and the relationships with the CIO and the CMO matter, because it's not just about having the right connect piece, but it's also making sure that we have the right business processes to optimize workflows. And using agile development models, this partnership has allowed us to ask really important questions in terms of, is this, are we on the right path? when do we need to revector, and how do we scale to the last mile? And really, the CMO partnership, that chief management officer partnership, is critical to the optimizing business processes. And the deputy CMO also serves as an evaluation official for our department. So it really helps us provide great metrics to actually drive optimized performance moving forward. In addition, we've been working across our department with all of our functional leaders to make sure that we provide great capability and great guidance on data ingestion standards into our enterprise information model. One of our goals last fiscal year was to develop a federated data catalog, and we have made significant progress in our data catalog, which we call EIM, Enterprise Information Model, but it is something that is maturing as we move forward. But our ultimate goal is to continue to make our Vault platform available to every airman. And in order to do that, we scripted a lot of the work. And so I like to call it infrastructure as code. And so now in a cloud environment, we've been able to create new instances on our multi-tenant solution, which is a cross-domain solution. So, and that is really important because it allows our airmen to do stuff at the lowest classification level possible, and then push it up into other networks if necessary. But it has allowed us to automate the account process. So I like to tell folks that people ask me how our job has changed over the last 100+ days since we've had to be more creative in the workspace. And our Vault platform is an impact level 5 platform. It allows secure remote access to airmen where they are. And it is, in using that cross-domain solution, it has allowed us to bring people on premise only when we need to bring them on premise, and everything is ready for them to go when we do bring them on premise. And so over the last 100 days, I use the word velocity because our constituencies and our customer base on our platform has significantly grown. And I think that's a great news story. We had this vision a year ago, we made it, we operationalized it, and now we've been able to leverage it because it was available. And just recently we had a platform join our mission platform, join the Vault platform, because we could literally scale them up on our platform in under 24 hours. When I look at where we're going in our lines of effort, and I'm going to build this really quick so that we make sure we have time for questions. I'd like to say that our operations line of effort continues, but we've been growing and maturing our governance process. We do have a data board and a data council. So we have data officers appointed across the Department of the Air Force that represent each functional area and their and each major command or field command, whether you're on the air or the space side. And then in addition to that, we actually have a executive general officer, SES, level data board that meets periodically to drive enterprise level decisions. We also stay synchronized with other executive level committees. So we're making decisions in concert with each other, not distinct and separate. The other two areas that we've really been investing in heavily is our workforce and talent management. Last fiscal year, we brought in our first specifically identified data science interns into the Department of the Air Force, and we actually built out a program so that other functional areas could leverage the work that we did to make it easier for them to bring in data science interns across the department. We did that last year, and over this summer, we actually we had to get a little bit creative, but we also had our workforce data science intern program this summer. Um, we we look at that as a pipeline. I know that our data science intern from last summer in my particular office is now becoming a Department of the Air Force civilian. And I think that's a great news story, because he came into our lab and did it basically in a 12-week summer internship, went from entry-level use case to entry-level AI algorithm development. And that algorithm development continued while he was in school this year. And it's actually a capability that we are using, continuing to mature today. So he could actually see the work that he's done and how he has contributed to optimizing data-driven decisions. Other pieces is investing in upskilling our workforce. I already talked about our partnership with AFIT. AFIT also runs a series of short courses, what I call just-in-time courses. Recently, we ran a Pathfinder to get our data officers across the Air Force their professional certification by ICCP on federal sector data governance. And I think the one I'm most excited about is the United States Air Force Academy this month is launching their first data science undergraduate degree program, which graduates from that particular degree program will come on to active duty in all career sets. So it's not just about building capability for our office, it's about building it for the department. And so we continue to work across the federal space with on talent management, on data science career series. But I like to say that for us, it's about total force. It's not just about civilian data science career series. It's about building that capability on our military side of the house too. Okay, I want to make sure that we have time. Just a few more use cases. We already talked about the KC10 depot scheduling optimizer, but we use use cases for other problem sets. We do a lot of manpower and readiness use cases. The Air Force, like industry, has problems recruiting and retaining our pilots, which are very expensive to train. So when we stood up our aircrew task force, we partnered with the A1, which is our personnel community, to optimize and come up with courses of action to focus on pilot retention. And that is a use case that continues to evolve. But we just wrapped our first readiness, or our first of a series of readiness use cases. So it's really about optimizing performance. But I think that the reality is, I like to tell senior leaders that there is a lot of hidden capability in our workforce, and our airmen are just looking for that capability to shine. Airmen coming into the Air Force have grown up digital natives, and they don't just expect, they demand access to data so that they can use it to inform their decision making that moves forward. And so that is really the trajectory that we're on, is to make sure that data is visible and accessible and actionable for airmen for tactical, operational, and strategic decision making moving forward. I know that we probably have questions, so I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions. So let me pivot back out to the front. Do we have questions from the group? I don't see the chat.
Sorry about that. I was getting the questions up in front of me, and we do have some questions. How do you document your data catalog? Is it a vocabulary, taxonomy, or ontology?
I would say that today it is more of a taxonomy, but we are pivoting to more of an ontology. We have a use case right now that I can't talk about in this particular venue because it hasn't been cleared yet, but we're really trying to do that data integration piece across multiple functional areas. So it's very easy when we talk about one functional area, whether it's logistics or personnel, but really to really do readiness use cases, it's about doing that data fusion piece. And so part of the conversation that I have with senior leaders when they're literally building their budgets is I ask them, who are your data customers? We're really good at building data or having data to answer our questions, but we don't really think about sometimes how our customers are going to use our data too. And so I'm asking them to think not just about how you use your data, but think about who are your customers and how are they going to use it, which is a big culture change for us. And it's also a budget challenge because people will say, I'm not budgeted to do that. But sometimes there's a way to shape the answer to actually get a higher return on investment. You got really quiet.
Right, and ultimately serving the greater mission.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, the next question is, my understanding is Vault is a data catalog, but does not contain actual data. Does it link to the stored data that is located outside of Vault?
I would say yes and no. There are data sets in Vault. It depends on, we set it up as a multi-tenancy capability. So depending on how your tenant is set up, but it absolutely links to different data sets. And now we're actually growing that. So it started really as linking to the source, but we actually have automated feeds. Some of the automated feeds are coming in daily into the platform, but depending on how a tenancy is set up, it depends what they see. But the idea is that it shouldn't be hard to get data for people that have a mission need. It's important, the catalog piece is really important to know in terms of what it is, where it is, and how I get access to it. Because some things we do need to link to rather than actually replicating everything.
Excellent, very comprehensive answer. Thank you. Here's a specific question from Tracy Rousseau. Are there planned links between Vault and USSF data library?
Yes, right now we are actually working, the Space Force has a thing called the Unified Data Library, and one of our amazing LNOs, Major Fred Tarantino, and I tell because he's a brand new major, he just got promoted next month, so or just this month, so congratulations, Fred. It's always exciting to see great airmen get promoted, and Fred is our liaison that is working directly with space to make sure that integration happens. But we also have other partnerships. So for instance, OSD has the Ivana platform, and we actually link to the Ivana platform also, so that when OSD, the Office of Secretary of Defense, if there's a customer on their platform that needs a data set, we have the capability for them to pull that data over, and we definitely take data from their system. I don't hear you.
I apologize. And from Christopher McDermott, what are some of the strategies for cataloging and specifying transforming DoD data that can be shared with partners, academics, industry?
Well, there's a couple efforts going on. Part of the Foundations of Evidence-Based Policymaking Act states that we need to meet open data requirements. And so this is one of those places where we are working with the Chief Management Office and other offices, including PA and the CIO, to make sure that data sets that we have policy in our department on how to release data, but what we're working on right now is to make sure we release it all the same way so that we'll have a common access point to actually, for people to pick stuff up and move stuff up if it's available or it's supposed to be available in the open environment. And that is still emerging and evolving, but that is an effort that will happen. As per the Federal Data Strategy Action Plan, we will meet its intent this fiscal year, and which I'm pretty excited about. But we also, when we work with partners, it is possible to make data available as needed. So we partner with the acquisition community to make sure that maybe there needs to be a clause in a contract to make sure that that data sharing capability is actually baked into the contract up front. And so it's not just about working with one office. There's many different offices and we work with the Allied Partners Office too, to make sure that if it can be shared and there's a mission reason for it to be shared, that I talk to the team, it's about how to get to yes, rather than the default no answer, because there's goodness in that open data yes, where applicable.
Yeah, getting to yes is, I think, an artful strategy that we're all moving towards. I mean, years gone by, it was really important, siloed information. It was hard to get data across sectors, but it's more important today for sharing in order to get greater insights.
Well, I agree, and that's why that linkability is critical, because sometimes you don't want it all in one place. You want to virtually merge it rather than physically move it.
Great point. We have a question. These are you okay? This implies that you might have attended Mark Ramsey's conversation yesterday. These use cases are very specific. Do you consider the solution scalable to dozen or more use cases as indicated by Mark Ramsey in his brief yesterday?
Absolutely. There's two pieces. One, when we do a use case, we wanted to have an enterprise focus, because I want to make sure that I'm not in somebody else's swim lane. So these problem sets come in from the field, and they have an enterprise focus, but we try very hard to work with the functional experts to make sure that it's small enough so that we're not trying to do too much and we don't accomplish anything. And then many of our use cases go in multiple phases. I like to call it scale it to the last mile. So we started with some use cases and it's maturing. So pilot training, next we've done multiple problem sets in support of that constituency. Our readiness customers, we do multiple iterations. Condition-based maintenance is another key area in our field, and it's an iterative approach. You learn from something and then you keep maturing it, and part of that, having a vision of how to scale it to the last mile, is pretty important. Each year, the Department of the Air Force runs a big cyberspace symposium. It happens to be next week, and it's virtual also. And last year, we actually ran a series of workshops, which we call the last mile workshops, on how you take a use case and how you iterate it to get to a more holistic approach or an enterprise solution moving forward. I think you have to have a deliberate path, but trying to find that balance between getting something that you can, small enough that you can accomplish something, and then answering the big hard challenge. It's really it's a juggling match, because if you take too much up front, it takes so long to get the answer that you might have missed your moment. So we really, we try to break it off in that agile development process, try to show value as quickly as possible, and then iterate, if that helps.
It helps a lot for me anyways, right? Build it scalable, start small, deliver value, and then get at the more issues that might seem intractable.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So from Kimberly Denise Sanders, how are you partnering with internal and external partners to secure data being shared?
There's multiple approaches. There, I like to call there's carrot and there's stick. And we have tried to do more carrot than thou shalt do X. I just think it's just received better. And but we're not opposed to, when we have a high visibility pathfinder that is going to be briefed at very senior levels, I will codify that in some sort of document, XORD, et cetera, so that we don't leave anybody out. When we first started to say, I want you to catalog data and make data available, there were people that, oh, you don't need my data. And my hashtag was hashtag all Air Force data. Because, you know, that you have to have a goal. Are we there yet? No, but we are so much further along than we were a year ago. And it comes back to that. Yes. Sometimes it's getting to that yes answer. And so I would say that, you know, I try to build those partnerships. I go out, see senior leaders, you know, have virtual coffee instead of, and ask, make them know that, you know, this is what we could be doing together as a partnership. You know, they don't have to do it alone. We can help them do it. And so, and I think that's important. And the other piece, especially with the Vault platform, that I think has really helped us is that there are always going to be big program offices with big budgets that can, you know, iteratively over time do some of the, what I would call the really hard stuff. But using LNOs and using a common platform has really empowered our smaller offices with really lean budgets to really gather velocity in this field. So some of my biggest change champion partners are organizations like the small business office, and another one is the audit agency, small business, our colleagues in the investigative type components, that they are high-end data users, but it's helped them automate some of their what I would call their high demand, low return, so that they can actually use their analysts for higher level tasks, which I hope will mean that they'll have higher retention rates because they're using their really smart airmen to do the really challenging work and not having to use them on some of the less desirable tasks.
I'm starting to see a theme here, kind of a law of attraction and inclusion, to get many stakeholders to have as many use cases and different entry points to the program, as well as extracting their own ROI. So it sounds like you're really building a strong alliance system.
Well, it is. I go back to, I can't do it alone. If you just say, I need all your data and make it happen, it's not magic. It's amazing airmen doing a lot of work that make it look seamless. But when you look behind the curtain, the amount of work that this very lean team of airmen that I lead has done in a very short period of time is it's pretty amazing, and I'm extraordinarily proud of their work.
Excellent. We have another question from Justin. How open or accessible is the data catalog, and does it contain metrics with underlying data or lineage?
Okay, our data catalog today is available only inside the DoD. There will probably be a DoD decision about what's releasable outside the DoD and what's, and a lot of that has to do with mosaic effect. We get, that's always going to be a concern for us. The metrics area is an area that we've been moving out on. So we're not quite there yet. In the Federal Data Strategy Action Plan, that was, I like to say, our Christmas gift, because it went from the Office of Management and Budget, because it was released on Christmas Eve and of 2019. Data maturity model and assessments are part of that data story. And so for us, we have actually developed our data maturity model, and it has been socialized across the Department of the Air Force. And we are about to publish that and we'll actually later this month or next month, early September, no later than 30 September, because that's the suspense date, to actually train all of our data officers on our maturity model and actually establish our first line of, really our true first enterprise level line of metrics. There are a lot of functional areas that have been doing that metrics piece because they've been forward leaning, but from an enterprise perspective, we're trying to line folks up so that we have a common enterprise story moving forward. And again, a lot of work in a very short period of time, but we're on the cusp of adding that as part of our story of maturity. I like to say that we're a startup in a very mature organization. And so, and we've been really on the forward edge to try to do things really quickly. Our Vault data platform, we went from 0 to an impact level 4 ATO'd platform in under 100 days. And in the Department of Defense, that's pretty fast. And then we matured it to an impact level 5 in the next 100 days. And then working with our partners over the third 100 days, we got to a multi-domain tenancy in a cross-domain solution to get to IL6. So today, it empowers airmen to do work at the appropriate level, but it can be migrated as if we need to move up for classified. And right now, with everything that's going on, that ability to work at the appropriate classification level really helps us optimize business processes.
Excellent. That's that first year, 0 to hero, and that first very important year to deliver on the expectations.
Yes,
congratulations. So James writes, how does your office and the CIO or Chief Software Office work together as it relates to CMMC and staying on the leading edge of technology?
We are absolutely aligned. So the chief, I should begin by saying we've talked a little bit about how the chief information officer and the chief management officer and we all work for the same person, and which I think helps build our velocity in our portfolio because we align our portfolios. And inside that CIO office, you have the chief innovation officer, you have the chief information security officer, and you have the chief technology officer. So we as leaders meet on a reoccurring level all of the time. We synchronize each and every week, if not each and every day as needed. And next week, when we run our AFITIC, our Air Force Information Technology Symposium virtually, my office that is run by the CIO, but we will be running the data, machine learning, and AI track next week because it's a partnership. On the other side of the venue is we have the Chief Software Officer, CFO, not to be confused with Chief Space Officer. And so the Chief Software Officer, Mr. Nicholas Shalane and I, we also work together, and he is aligned under the acquisition side of the house. And so we are working with them using their secure DevOps platform. So if you look at the Vault Data platform, it aligns to the Level Up platform that's our software factories are using. So we're using the same philosophy to move towards containerization so that we can deploy quickly across domains, across platforms very easily. But in addition to just looking at the DevSecOps piece, it is also really critical, that partnership with acquisition, to make sure that any data rights, intellectual property, data use, data sharing agreements, components actually get put into contracts, especially the big contracts, so that it becomes the default language moving forward. And so that partnership with the acquisition community, where the Chief Software Officer is also just as critical as our partnership with CIO and CMO.
Excellent. Continuing your theme of extending the original ask, right, and taking the next step. So we have an anonymous question, which is a really great one. It boils it down. We have about 5 minutes left. We have 2 more questions. But this one is, which use case had the most and biggest impact on the Air Force, and what was that impact?
Oh, that I can talk about. In an unclassified realm, realistically, I would say that it depends on your functional group. So if you talk to if you look at the condition-based maintenance groups, it's expensive to main platforms. We're constantly doing models to how we can cost effectively extend platforms. I think from a dollars and cents side, it helps us save money. But looking at condition-based maintenance, it allows you to look at, and we do this all the time with our cars. Like, my car's in the shop, what am I doing now? And should I get this done while it's in the shop? And I think that's really important because downtime costs money too. And so, so anything that's related to condition-based maintenance, I think is really something that we have to be smart with, our, good stewards of US taxpayer dollars. But on the flip side, people is your most valuable resource, and the life cycle from hire to retire is also really critical. And when you lose a highly trained pilot or a highly trained cyber operator, it's not just pilots. When you lose your most senior mechanic, it can have long-term impact to your maintenance posture. So anything that's also people related, I think shows immediate return on investment. So any of our use cases that can help us keep our highly skilled or inform senior leaders on how to not just recruit but retain our best airmen in our department, I think that we may not see the dividends today, but over the years, it is absolutely going to be some of the best investment dollars we've made.
Excellent. Yeah, must be difficult with the classified material. Might be some of the most interesting projects you're working on, but we understand completely that you're not able to discuss them. But this might be getting close to it as well. Tracy comes back and asks, what are the most critical challenges that the Air Force data officers need to tackle concerning weapons systems, data, and data sharing with these specific systems or silos?
I don't like the word silo. It's really, I think that our biggest challenge in the department is the change management piece. It doesn't matter whether you're in the logistics community or in the weapons community, changing the conversation from it's not your data to you are an amazing steward of Department of the Air Force data, and that you're doing this on behalf of the department and trying to make sure that we're being great stewards of US taxpayer dollars so that we don't create redundant capability. It's really important. That visible, accessible piece is really important regardless of what functional community you're in, because when you don't know that it exists, there's the potential of creating your own. And there's a cost associated with creating and maintaining your own. So, and then there's always that decreases that trustworthiness component of Vault, because you're starting to question, well, do I use this data set or do I use that data set? Where's the truth? And so the culture change, we've made huge progress, but I think that, and I don't think I'm alone in that journey. I don't think that I don't even think it's a Department of Air Force challenge. I think that I know that my academic colleagues have similar issues. I'm sure my industry partners have similar issues, that trying to get to that trustworthiness, great volumes of high quality data is going to, that's the goal. Because if we want AI and machine learning to work, we got to have at the velocity we want it to work. This is a cornerstone foundational piece. So I don't think it's a weapon system issue. I think that you could say that same question whether you're talking about maintenance people, supply chain, etc.
Okay. Thank you for taking us. Sorry.
Well, no, I really appreciate you taking allowing me to share this amazing journey of these airmen that are, and really airmen and space professionals today that are really changing and transforming daily operations at the Department of the Air Force. It's really my honor to serve, because the work that they're doing every day is just phenomenal, and I appreciate the opportunity to share it with the group.
Well, and speaking of serving, thank you for your service. I read in your bio that you were in the Army and have extended to a second generation, and congratulations on your daughter's promotion to captain.
Oh, Elizabeth, I thank you. I know that you serve too. So thank you for your service, but it's always I look at it, it's always an honor to serve.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, Errol.